Desert wasteland. There was a humble village. It didn't have a name. But in this village, there was a tower that was many, many feet high. And in this tower, there lived a princess. This princess, like the town, did not have a name. But we'll call her Jane, because Jane is a fitting name for a princess. Day by day, Jane sat in her tower and watched the inhabitants of the village go about their daily lives. She wondered what it was like to be one of them, to live simply and have friends and a family and pets and go to the market and buy groceries, and listen to tribal music from the desert. Because being a princess and living in a tower can sometimes leave out certain parts of a normal life, like those. So day by day, she sat and watched out her window as the peasants led their donkeys around the market, putting oranges and grapes and papayas and star fruits and other delicious foods of the desert.
Give me fruits.
Give me fruit, they would say, and then they would have to pay a standard rate for the fruit, like normal peasants. But there was one peasant who was not quite so normal. Like everything else in this story, he didn't have a name. But since we need names in a story, we'll call him Jim. Jim the peasant was not a normal peasant. He was an abnormal peasant. He had a tiger. Its name was Mufasa. That doesn't make any sense because Mufasa is a lion. It was a liger! Mufasa the liger, charging through the desert, gobbles up an antelope and carries its head on its tail. It's a two-headed liger. It's a ligerlope. The liger actually doesn't have to do anything with the story. But one day, Jim was leading Mufasa through the market and staring at all the silly normal peasants with their donkeys and their fruit, while Jim instead bought vegetables and processed foods that came from absolutely nowhere. Because in the desert, who buys processed foods?
Bologna.
Yeah, like bologna. And chicken strips. But those aren't vegetables. So he bought carrots. Anyway, so one day, Jim was leading Mufasa through the market, and he tripped on a stone. The stone had absolutely no significance other than the fact that he tripped on it. As he was laying on the ground, staring up at the sky, wondering why he had tripped, and now why he looked like such a fool, lying on the ground and staring at the sky, he happened to make eye contact with the princess, Jane. Immediately, there was a spark. Even Mufasa could feel it. Something was ripe in the air, and it wasn't the papayas and the starfruits and the cantaloupe and the oranges and the tangerines and the mangoes. Something was extra ripe. Jim held his breath. He couldn't think of a more perfect face. And as Jane stared down, she felt the same thing. In all her days of watching the peasants, she had never seen such an admirable, abnormal peasant as Jim. Laying on his back, staring at the sky, upside down, as Mufasa the liger stared off into the sky, looking at nothing in particular. So the princess thought, I must get down this tower. And at the same time, Jim thought, I must get up that tower. And so, they began their journey towards each other. It was epic. It was cool. It was awesome. Jane began climbing down the tower. She crept out the window. She slid her fingers into the bricks. Now, I don't know if you've ever tried to climb down a cement tower. It's pretty hard. There's not really a lot you can hold on to, other than the little cracks in the bricks. So she started climbing down the tower. She was very careful about it. She was very cautious and calm and cool and collected, because she was on her way to meet her destiny. Jim got off the ground. He sat astride Mufasa the liger, and he began galloping towards the tower.
So, you rode it. You galloped towards the tower.
Mufasa used his tigerly talons to climb up the wall. It was a lot easier for